This isn't an issue that divides Republicans and Democrats. This isn't an issue that divides people by race in terms of policy preferences or any other sort of demographic change, the demographic differences on policy issues. Everyone agrees except the radical left, and I guess Democratic Party machine operatives, to be blunt, that this is necessary for secure elections. First up is this big battle in Washington over spending related to the Department of Homeland Security. The Democratic Party, the left, has decided they want to essentially use a spending bill that would provide support for DHS through the end, I think, of the fiscal year to mandate or extract changes to how ICE enforces the law with respect to deportations. And they have a laundry list of demands, and I'm not going to go through each of the demands, other than to say the core demand requires what they say is a judicial warrant, essentially a level of specificity if there's going to be any targeting of any individual for deportation. Now, to get a judicial warrant to deal with, in order to deal with deportations for tens of millions of foreign invaders, essentially tells the Trump administration and America that there'll be no more deportations, because they put in essentially a poison pill into our deportation law, which currently allows for immigration judges who are employees of the executive branch to consider any challenges or concerns related to deportations and then take actions and sign off on warrants authorizing detention and deportation of an individual. That's what the law allows for. So when they say you need a judicial warrant, the left is just making up requirements that have nothing to do with the law. So to make things impossible in terms of enforcement of the law with respect to detaining and deporting illegal aliens in the interior of the United States, they want to add a judicial warrant requirement, which in effect would mean that no one gets deported. So the left currently is demanding a bill out of Congress aligned with their support for DHS funding that would turn the entire nation into a sanctuary for illegal alien invaders. Once you're over the border, or if you're here currently illegally, you will have zero chance of being deported under the left Democrat scheme to hamstrung everyone who is trying to enforce the rule of law in very dangerous circumstances in places like Minneapolis or anywhere else. And tied to all of this is the Republican pushback. They're thinking of pushing again, whether it's tied to DHS spending or not is another matter. I don't know where we stand on that, but there are going to be key votes on this issue coming up related to election integrity. The Republicans have been kicking around a bill. The Senate hasn't acted on it in months. Evidently, they wanted to, the new reason is they wanted the House to strengthen it again. So there's going to be a vote on the bill soon in the House and then presumably in the Senate. And what would the bill do? The key elements of the bill are a national voter ID, so states wouldn't be able anymore to conduct federal elections without requiring voter ID in order to vote, and citizenship verification in order to register to vote. These two elements, poll after poll have shown, are supported by upwards of 85% of American citizens. So this isn't an issue that divides Republicans and Democrats. This isn't an issue that divides people by race in terms of policy preferences or any other sort of demographic change, the demographic differences on policy issues. Everyone agrees except the radical left, and I guess Democratic Party machine operatives, to be blunt, that this is necessary for secure elections. Voter ID and citizenship verification. Those are the two core issues of the SAVE Act that is the Senate may not vote on at all, or may not pass in the Senate at all. In the House, it's still going to be close. So this is what you need to do. At least this is what I would do. If I were a voter and I were concerned about these issues, I would call. I'd call the House. I'd call my representative in the House, find out who he is or she is. And don't worry, if they're Democrats, you should call them too. And you call your senators. So find out who your senators are. And all you need to do is call the Capitol Hill switchboard. There are a few numbers. The one I kind of have memorized is 202-225-3121. And someone's going to answer and say, how may I help you? There may be now AI trees or something that help you get to where you need to go. But just ask for your congressman, ask for your senators. So 3 phone calls. You can also call the local offices of each senator and congressman as well in your congressional district or in your state, so you pick. But communicate your views as to whether they should pass DHS funding with a poison pill, but I guess poison pill isn't the right word. Poison pill usually makes it so that a vote will obviously never succeed. But with something that is so objectionable as to destroy our ability to enforce immigration law. And then secondly, whether or not Congress should finally pass something that's sorely needed, a national voter ID and citizenship verification. Voter ID is necessary, but it's not sufficient because non-citizens have the ID in many cases, if they're already registered to vote illegally or improperly or however, to vote. So they could live in a voter ID state, but because they're registered, because the only way, the registration right now, all it does is it requires a personal attestation on, and if you falsely sign, you're potentially subject to prosecution, but no one checks your documents to make sure you're a citizen. So call your members of Congress about whether to support voter ID and citizenship verification, and whether or not to protect the minimum work we need to do to enforce our immigration law. The left wants to turn the entire United States, not just Minneapolis, not just New York City, not just LA or California. They want to turn the whole country into a sanctuary for illegal aliens, making it nearly impossible to enforce the law, detain, and deport them as is required. And because millions need to be detained and deported. So call your members of Congress and your senators at 202-225-3121, 202-225-3121 to share your views on these important issues. And I say that, I'm not telling you what to say. Be polite, be firm, but remember, they're just typically junior staffers, but they do track who calls. And you may say, well, if the person, let's say you're a Republican and you live in a blue state, you've got 2 Democrat senators, Democrat representatives, still call and share your views. They do take note of the opposition in the state, and they kind of calculate their views and modify their views and their rhetoric based on what they're hearing from home. And even if the phone doesn't get answered, still call. Because the phones ring. They do know if there's a lot of people calling simply by the volume of calls and the ringing of the phones in the offices. Now, I know a lot of people might tell you, it's a waste of time to call your members of Congress. That is not true. I've been in this town longer than I care to admit to. It is a useful barometer for the members as to what the public is concerned about. So get on the horn. If you're concerned about election integrity, call your senators, call your congressmen. Get on the horn if you're concerned about basic immigration enforcement. Because on the immigration enforcement side, let me be clear here, there are many, many Republicans, and I'm sure there are a few people in the Trump administration who want to dial it back, right? They don't like the way the liberal media is spinning this. They think they're kind of losing on some of the messaging. And so there's a lot of pressure to dial back the deportation efforts, the reversal of the Biden invasion. And so if you don't want that to happen, you gotta do what you gotta do in our system, which is communicate your concerns as a voter and a citizen to your elected representatives. Oh, and by the way, reaffirm or oppose or do whatever you want at the state and local level if your local community or your state representatives or government is also engaged in the sanctuary lawlessness that's endangering lives all over the country. So these are kind of crucial issues, and it's likely to be some of the more important votes the House and the Senate take prior to the election, because not much is going to get done with an upcoming congressional election. So these are one of these few moments, at least this year, where your voice may make a difference. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.